So when I was watching the Cirque du Soleil, all I could see in my head was like this world like Tron.
Because let's face it, you had no idea what was going on in Cirque du Soleil.
No, well, I was like that, and there's all these like lights, and I was like, well,
really, the obsession started right then.
Yeah, so just Tron, it's just all these digital lines and just sort of information, sort of, and so basically I pegged it home, went onto the council websites, and I just found that all these old maps that were PDFs, it was kind of like treasure maps, basically. They were like literally as dusty as a treasure map, right? And badly drawn and made no sense. And I was like, well, they're not human readable, never mind machine readable, and so I was like, well, it needs to be digitized. So, but I thought there would be some data set. City Mapper tapped it, built its app from an API, a data feed from Transport for London, which is great. So they built the shop window for the data. At that point, I probably should have stopped.
Hi everybody, and welcome to FEBE Founder Stories. Jules. Why do you always giggle when I say your name? Set me up. Jules, it is lovely to have you here.
Oh, thanks for having me back again.
And just have those beautiful shoes. I mean, what we got
they're
today?
A different pair.
They're just lovely.
Yeah, I'm rocking the cat shoes today.
You really are rocking it. Anyway, lovely to have you, Jules. And Dan.
Hello.
Dan, is it Hubbard or Hubert?
It's Hubert.
Okay,
Yeah.
right. Okay, Dan, lovely to meet you. Now, I actually saw you on Dragon's Den.
Okay.
And
the brick wall is very similar.
But I saw you on Dragon's Den a few years back, wearing a beautiful bow tie.
Yes.
You looked amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And what I loved about what you did, you slapped them in the face a little bit. Everyone wanted to invest in you. You basically said, mm-mm. Is that right?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that meant that I think we did an interview, a written article, a couple of years back, but it just blew my mind in terms of what you were doing. Dan, I'll probably get it wrong if I say exactly what it is, but is it a parking app? Is that how you describe what AppyWay is?
So we do have a parking app, and the parking app is called Appy Parking, as you do, like Ron Seal.
Is that playing on the word happy?
Well, yeah, happy. Parking is a horrible thing, so how do you make it a lot better? So in fact, Appy Parking's slogan is called Make Parking Forgettable. So we do have an app, but in order to make parking forgettable, every driver in the world asks the three questions, which is where can I park, which is all about rules and restrictions at destination. Is it available? So if I arrive, can I actually get a space? And then the third part, which is like the traditional payment app, which we know in the world today, we have 10 apps in our pocket, is can I pay? So the three questions is what every driver really wants. Google lets you down because it takes you somewhere near B, and it does a great job of rerouting.
Yeah, it does let you down, you're right.
It takes you to the building, but the building, you can't park on the building, so you have to then drive a mile around. Is it available is just guesswork, right? Every journey is a parking disaster waiting to happen. And then the payment part is sort of fairly resolved, but again, you have 10 apps, so that's still broken, there's friction. So every part of that, every one of those questions has friction. And that friction causes huge problems. It causes massive carbon emissions. It's blocking drivers getting all the jobs from businesses and fleets. And
it's making people angry.
Yeah, and that problem, not having, it causes divorces, arguing in the car.
On parking.
The arguments in the car, right? We can cure divorces.
I would hope there was something else other than just like, love your having parked in the right parking space again.
Yeah,
so it is the most stressful thing on the planet, though, isn't it? I can see what he means. I mean, it probably erupts when you can't find a space.
Wasted fuel, the emissions, air quality. Every school in London is surrounded by intoxicating levels of air quality.
Yeah.
There's 4.6 million car trips every day in London happening. Everyone going in lost. So you kind of think about the depth, the potential of solving those three questions. So it's not just a parking app, it's actually a driver app. And the way we make parking forgettable is by providing the best curbside intelligence about a destination. We provide information about the real-time availability or probability of you getting a space when you arrive. And then we can facilitate the payment as well. So yeah, it's...
So Dan, I'm driving, so Juliet and I are in the car, okay, and we're driving along, trying to find
having a round.
Having a round, because I probably got lost as well en route.
Yeah.
And so your app is going to basically show us, it's going to help us anticipate where there is going to be a place.
Yeah.
And then it's going to help, we can pay as well.
Yeah, in certain areas right now, but over the next 2 years, we'll be able to facilitate payments across the whole of the UK.
Wow.
And it's not just
that's a game changer, isn't it?
It's not just about paid bays, because that's the traditional parking industry. Parking industry is about either making payments out of a parking bay or putting enforcement officers on the street to put tickets on windows. But we have, because we've mapped the whole curbside and created an inventory that is for people that want to load, for disabled people if they can park on a double yellow line in central London with a blue badge. You can then sort of open up all the value to different use cases. So it's a very powerful data set that is going to make a significant difference.
So Dan, is this sort of real time, is it as in there is a space there now in 5 minutes?
So we do, answering the question, second question, is it available, is quite a hard one. And the world wants that now, but in order to get to that place, you need to sort of create an inventory of the curbside to understand what object is at the curbside first. So we've solved that problem by digitising the curbside. Then the second part is obviously real time, which everyone wants, and the guarantee when you arrive to be, you can get your space. We have actually got the largest deployment of sensors in Europe, or perhaps the world now, over sort of 12,000 sensors across parking bays on street and off street. So Harrogate was our first demonstrator to prove the power of the platform, which is real-time availability, so actual availability. So you can go into the app, you can see there's 5 spaces, or there's one space over there. So you probably drive to the 5-space one because you've got 5 times more chance of getting that space. We also pull in data from connected vehicles, telematics, CCTV, number plate recognition, barrier entry from car parks. Also, because our app now is getting huge adoption in London, and we're getting thousands of, tens of thousands of monthly active users, we're seeing where they're going from and where they're going to. We're seeing what curbside they actually want, and we're seeing what vehicle type they are and what use case. So we're building up these heat maps now of real-time activity of basically, London, Greater London. So once you merge all those together, you create a very powerful, you can answer that question extremely well. We've got to sort of 92% accuracy on predictive as well, based upon putting all those different.
I mean, that sounds really high. I guess that's really, really high.
I mean, the market right now is flogging 60%, but that's a flick of a coin, right? But they're still monetizing it, which is great. But the higher you can get to that sort of threshold is pretty significant. So yeah, so behind the scenes is this very big government platform that we're building, and we're giving every local authority the tools to manage the curbside because they own that asset. So it's only right they should manage it in a digital world. So the more that cities get this data out, because cities are famous for just having data and not knowing what to do with it, we can get the data into 40 million vehicles using it, then we all kind of know then what's going on a sort of grand scale.
I've got to come to the thing that I love so much about your story. There's lots of things I love about your story, but you'll relate to this because with Grenade, when you start with an idea, just how much work goes into creating something. But Dan, is it right to actually start this? You got on your bike and you would spend your free time mapping the local streets.
Well, I mean, isn't there something before that why you started it? Like some sort of guilty, like some confession or something as to why you started it?
Yeah, I mean, you don't, parking is a funny old game. You don't wake up one day and I want to get into parking. I tried and tripped into the gutter, I think, is kind of how I came into it. So yeah, I was driving to the Royal Albert Hall, having an argument with my girlfriend at the time because we were late, arrived, every bay was full, and there was just like 5 meters of single yellow line right outside the doors of the Royal Albert Hall. And I thought, well, if I could park the car there, I've got VIP access and I can get in and no more arguments. Traffic warden walks past. I said, can I park here? And he said, yeah, of course you can. I was like, what do you mean, of course? He goes, well, there's a sign 2 streets down the road that says you can, the restriction sign. And I was like, makes no sense, but okay, thanks. I rocked up, got seats, watched Cirque du Soleil, and that was it. So that was my sort of like moment where I was like, oh, there's information about this single yellow line that gives me the privilege to park there, which is great. Had it been, had I known more information, I might have not actually left via car. I might have got, public transport or taken active travel instead. So when I was watching the Cirque du Soleil, all I could see in my head was like this world like Tron.
Because let's face it, you had no idea what was going on in Cirque du Soleil.
No, well, I was like that, and there's always like lights. And I was like, well,
really, the obsession started right then.
Yeah, so just Tron, I just all these digital lines and just sort of information, sort of, and so basically I pegged it home, went onto the council websites, and I just found that all these old maps that were PDFs. It was kind of like treasure maps, basically. They were like literally as dusty as a treasure map, right? And badly drawn and made no sense. And I was like, well, they're not human readable, never mind machine readable. And so I was like, well, it needs to be digitized. So, but I thought there would be some data set. City Mapper tapped it, built its app from an API, a data feed from Transport for London, which is great. So they built the shop window for the data. At that point, I probably should have stopped. And instead, I started to download all these PDFs from different local authorities, and I started to build this map up. And I went to work at the time. They had these like big like plan chests, to big like architects things. I started printing off all these maps. And I stayed late one night, and this project manager said, "What are you doing?" And I wasn't so happy in my job at the time. I said, "I'm planning my escape."
Yeah.
And so I had these like massive maps, and I was. So I'd be like covering my walls.
You sound nuts, by the way. I love this. This is just great. This is the most bonkers thing I can picture right now. It's brilliant.
Yeah. So then I saw the maps, I saw the holes, and I saw that it wasn't comprehensive, complete, whatever. So I thought, well, the only way to try and work out where these bloody zones are, and I thought, well, I like cycling, right? So I jumped on my bike and I cycled around.
Right.
And filled in all the gaps, got all the controlled parking zones, realised there's like a million edge cases, like bank holidays, match days, you can, you can't, you can load, you can't park, you can pay, all these different things. So actually, it turns out our platform now processes over 110,000 parking signs in London, so you have, across the UK. So there's 110,000 chances of getting a parking ticket. So I basically built this, I got all these maps, got all the data, got a developer to make me a Google tool to draw some zones, stuck the zones into an app, which I designed on the fly. I had no idea how to design an app. And it got into the App Store, and then British Telecom, I got into the Evening Standard. British Telecom then came to me and said, we have 8,000 drivers in London. We have a £4 million parking ticket problem. Can we have this kind of information to give our back office team so we know where to put our drivers? And at that moment, I was like, there we go. There's a big problem there to solve. So that was it. So off the back of that, then I raised obviously my seed round and went on a journey into the unknown.
You make it sound so easy, like you built an app. I had no idea what I was doing, but you built an app. What was your background?
I was a creative director in advertising, so I was writing commercials and stuff like that. It's just basically problem solving, creative thinking, trying to apply yourself in, and just trying to. And ultimately, I saw the curbside as a commodity, and we are consumers of that curbside. And I thought, well, there's no information on that curbside. It's like a shopping mall with no prices, no items, no lights. And why is that acceptable in the world of parking? Because it is such a huge cost to everyone's lives, financially and for the environment. So yeah, I kind of approached it like that. Then I basically spoke to about 10 developers who I kind of like called friends of friends, had some beers, and I was like, I've got this idea. And one guy said, yeah, I mean, they always say, the first guy's not mad, it's the second guy to follow the mad guy. So I found the second mad guy. Yeah.
What, you mentioned you then started your seed, etc. How long in was it that you then went? And I come back to it because I thought it was amazing when you were on the Dragon's Den. How long were you into the journey before you went on to Dragon's Den?
That was like two years into the journey, I think.
Okay, and why did you go on Dragon's Den? The reason I asked that is because you turned down the investment.
They invited me, and I thought, what better way to get free advertising? That was it.
So you used the platform.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah. Yeah. It wasn't so good the day after it went live because I've just come back from a stag weekend and my friends destroyed me. So I had to manage the fallout of being on national TV, and then everyone, because it is a pain that everyone wants to be solved, everyone downloaded it in the UK, I didn't have the data. The platform wasn't ready. The data wasn't ready. So massive. It was a great validation because it completely crashed the company's servers and stuff like that. But massive spikes, massive downloads. But then everyone, it's like a mobile phone problem. Like back in the day, you buy a lovely mobile phone, and there wasn't the infrastructure and the network to provide the calls. So you go, the phone's shit. So that was kind of like, there was a good learning curve, was to not go too loud with a product too soon.
You're ready,
yeah.
And what about staff? So that was just you. It was just you in the business when you went on Dragon's Den, and then you
there's
sort of
about 8 of us then.
8.
So yeah, I was kind of doing about 10 jobs at that point.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many now?
How many jobs am I doing now?
Well, and how many people? How many people? How many people? How many?
48 now.
48. So that's really scaled, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we went up to about 65. Scaled back down after the pandemic. But that's actually, the team is brilliant now. Yeah, it's super exciting.
And you raised over 20 million quid?
Yeah, raised over 21 million, yeah.
Wow. So would you say that, I have seen you a lot on, so I like LinkedIn. So that is the platform where I like to look on LinkedIn and see what's going on. You are regularly putting some great stuff out on LinkedIn, getting a lot of engagement on LinkedIn. But every time I read something, you've done something massive for the business, like signed a new contract or a new local authorities. I think I read the other day you were going into Ireland.
Yeah.
So it seems you have hit a tipping point now. Is that right? Where now people, the platform is in all its beauty, solving the problem. Yeah. People really want this platform, but it's really delivering in terms of what they need, and that's therefore enabling you to become famous, I guess, in terms of everyone seeing the platform. Yeah.
I mean, I think we have, we were very early in the idea back in 2013 to try and consolidate 3 industries, which is parking, granular curbside maps, and supply and demand heat maps, and to make a platform, make an app for drivers, then work with governments and go and map the cities, and then get the cities engaged. It was pretty audacious, to be honest.
Were you too early? Because like my friend created lactose-free milk and then ended up throwing it all away because it just wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
So like timing is key.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, now you can't get hold of lactose. Over Christmas, I can get hold of lactose milk. Everyone's after it. No.
Well, it's sold out.
They went up too early.
Yeah, well, he's probably got 60 million litres or whatever that he threw away.
Probably good cheese now.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to the question, Dan.
2013 was when I came up with the idea. We're now, what are we now? 2023, 10 years ago, right? Way too early. Pioneers always take the arrows, and that's not fair, is it, really? But but we're pretty tenacious and resilient, and we've been very shrewd with our money, and it's a long time to go. And so it hasn't been a commercial. It's been hard to commercialise because you can't monetize half a bridge, half a toll bridge. You can't do that. You can't pull oil out of the sea with half an oil rig. Like, we've had to build the platform. Chat GPT was dark for 7 years, and now it's doing all right.
What is that? I'm seeing that everywhere at the moment. What is that?
Oh, it's just the new artificial general intelligence. So it will give hyper-contextualized answers to, so that's Google but on steroids, and it makes it completely contextual.
Really?
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's way over my head, but it sounds
far
very
too
exciting.
intelligent for us. Just give me colouring pencils.
Honestly, it is. You'll spend hours on that instead of LinkedIn.
But you mentioned. I'm going to go check it out and I get a new addiction. But you mentioned the persistence, and I think that is the thing that I.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
I mean, with the entrepreneurs that we meet with FEBE Founder Stories, that is one of the things that I find the most inspiration. Is people have an idea, and then before you know it, the product, people are buying the product. Then there's a whole army of people that they're part of their team. Yeah. This, from what you're saying, has been this must have tested you and taken you to levels of stress and pushing you to your limits that you probably would have never even thought that you'd be possible to survive, right? Yeah. Am I pretty accurate in that description?
Yeah, I mean, it's all perspective, isn't it? I think everyone has stress in their day, regardless of who they are and what responsibility they have. But I think I've had a little bit of a chalice to carry, which was not just a personal, to succeed personally, to make sure I've done my job, but I know what it can do for carbon emissions and stuff like that. So that really drives me a lot, because I see the wastage. 40 million vehicles spitting out 122 million tonnes of carbon in the UK because they're lost is not acceptable now.
Is that the stat?
Yeah, it's a third of all UK emissions.
Because people are lost.
Yeah. So and like the trial, the now live demonstrator in Harrogate, that's at scale. If we selected the UKs across the world, UK could easily remove about 13 million tonnes. So over 10% of all emissions could be removed if the government got off their arse and actually really thought about it. So that really drives me immensely. But we are at this precipice of a huge opportunity now. The EV revolution is fantastic, like reduce air quality. But again, it's a complete bun fight. It's like a wild west in the world of EV. The headlines are now starting to appear that we're not going to get to the right targets, etc. You know, it should have been the digitisation, which is what we're doing first. And once you have your inventory of your assets, then you should then electrify, and then you can optimise, and then you can automate. It's been the other way around. It's arse about face, which is a huge problem. But again, it's the OEMs all pushing the agenda to the government, so a lot of money can sway the way. But yeah, if we can fundamentally, you know, there's some Morrison's Fleet Services, which is a company who uses our curbside data to operate. They're installing thousands of smart meter installs every day, which is fantastic, right? You're more mindful of how much energy you spend once you have that bloody monitor in your house going, the energy bills.
Oh, I couldn't get one of those. I'd be obsessed. Really
it's like Squid Games when you watch it. Oh
my God, put another layer on. Terrible.
And so this is a good thing these guys are trying to do, but they can't always do their job because they can't get access to the curbside to get to the destination. So what we've done with our data, they're reducing failed job attempts by 30%, which is huge. So they can get more jobs per day and more installs and more smart meter installs. So on every single level, there is a business case to digitise the curbside and put it into people's apps and solutions. So, you know, parking should be an activity that starts here at home or at home. So you then go, I'm going to go and drive into town. You look before you go, oh, no thanks, and take active travel instead. Yeah. You can actually de-incentivize people just jumping into a car, because 55% of the world is a pessimist, I think, but when you jump into a car, I think 100% become an optimist. Yeah. So how do you remove optimism? Because optimism just breeds people getting lost.
Yeah. I just become angry.
You've created already a multi-million turnover business here. What are the revenue streams? How is that generated?
So essentially it's a two-sided platform, which is we give governments a platform and we give 40 million motorists of all use cases, businesses and consumers, data via APIs or an app. So it's a two-sided platform. So on the government side, they pay us to create digital twins of their streets. So we do Google Street View and create a digital twin. And these maps are like 20 centimetre to 3 centimetre accurate. So really high-grade survey maps, which are fantastically incredible maps. So there's a stream there, which is we charge to map, we charge to then extract the data, create a digital twin on the curbside. And then we put it then into our platform, the traffic street management platform, which allows them to manage the traffic regulation orders of the street. So the business case there really is optimization of the local authority, because we're speeding up the speed to process a change of curbside from one thing to another, like planning permission for an extension. You've got to go through all that for a local authority. We're squeezing that by 75% efficiencies. So they can do more parking schemes, more EV bay rollouts, more cycle hangers. They can turn the curbside into more sustainable options. So Lambeth, for example, has the most boldest sustainability ambition right now. They've done a manifesto where they want to get rid of 25% of all parking bays across the borough. And they're only going to be able to do that because they're a customer of ours. Well, we supply the platform to them, so they can then get the data into the platform, put it to the local to the residents, work out the happiness, and then they can speed up the whole regulation side of things. So that's and then they're buying more modules now. So now we have a UK-wide request portal that allows cities to understand where on-street charging is required. So 55% of the UK doesn't have a driveway, but yet EV is the future. So you need to on-street charging is essential. But right now, no one knows where to put the plugs. No. And there's lots of charge point operators going, we've got money, where do we put the plugs? And the city goes, we know you got money, we don't know where to put them, and we haven't got the tools to speed up the regulation to change a parking bay to an EV bay. Like the whole thing is like, coming to this sort of like massive explosion point. So geospatial data to enable EV rollout is fundamental now. So it's again a huge opportunity for us.
So who benefits from this? I mean, obviously consumers benefit because they know where they can park. Local authorities benefit because it decreases parking fines, give people more of a reason to go there. Who's it for?
Yeah.
Well, the whole platform, as I said, it helps many protagonists in this story, and it is like on the government side, it helps the local authorities basically create a better public service. Because they are public servants and they do strive to do well, but they're paid to do a job within they're paid to do a job from 1984 because of the Regulation Act. So that's unfortunately the wrong application of a person right now. So we can help these people within their confines of their job role to do more because they're basically bogged down by the administration of regulation.
But do they lose out because, like, as a driver, I think, if you get a parking ticket, that money goes to the local authority. Is that the case?
So the world of parking, it's 4 inches of curbside, right? But there's about 1,000 people who are all relevant in this story. So it's a mountain. So in the government side, there's the parking department, and the parking department generally spend 20% of their time doing freedom of information requests from the public, going, what happened here, why have I got a ticket? So just basically admin, which could be actually removed if you get better data and transparency. They also do parking enforcement management, and that's their roles really. It's just they're actually in the local authority. They're the kings because they make the cash. But they make money from parking enforcement and parking revenues from the cash machines. So there's sort of 3 main roles they have. But the cost of actually enforcement is a business enforcement is there to ensure the streets are run smoothly, basically, that the people aren't congesting the roads. But the cost of that is huge because the only way you can enforce is by putting people on the streets to walk the streets. An example, Islington, they went out for tender recently, and it was a £5 million 5-year contract, so £25 million for 5 years, for 250,000 man-hours per year. So you times that by London, and that's £100 million a year spent on enforcement to get officers to walk the streets, to put tickets on windows. But this business model needs to change because actually now data is ubiquitous, thanks to AppyWay. Compliance, people now can know where to go, where not to go, should I drive, should I not drive. So compliance becomes a new opportunity. So you can actually turn the curbside into rather than a horrible place to be that makes revenues basically on people's mistakes and people driving blind.
Misery,
You can turn the curbside into a positive revenue engine. And now there are people in local authorities and councillors and stuff like that who are starting to realise that there are more opportunities. It's a really interesting place. But there's the parking departments who make money out of, who are the kings, and there's the traffic and highways department who do all the traffic regulation orders. And there's always this tension between the 2 departments. So parking is not one thing; it is a complex beast, even within local authorities. And there's a very tragic fact that 200 local authorities in the UK that have curbside management obligations spend £1 billion of taxpayers' money a year. It is vast. It is such a waste of money because of how analogue and how paper-based driven it is.
If you look at the journey that you've been on so far, the hurdles that you've had to overcome, the way that you've just kept complete tunnel vision and focus on where you're taking this, tell me where the next 2-3 years are going to go, 5 years, whatever time frame you want to talk here. But where do you now see this going to the point now which you've got it to?
Yeah. So we are on this verge right now. So the GovTech side, I've been busy building a well. And once you build the wells are hard because you have to build them into mountains, and there's lots of rocks and stuff like that. So we've built the well, and it's producing beautiful water. So that's the data, the curbside data. So now we're putting the data into the world now, like a UK curbside map going into 40 million motorists is kind of on this journey to get to that. So we've got a big deal potentially happening next week with one of the largest insurers in the UK, which is great. Access to 24 million drivers, which is a great opportunity there. So we're kind of getting water from the well into the motorists. So that's great.
So if that comes over the line, then that is... that's just massive, isn't it?
It's a good one. It's a good one. Yeah. I mean, I'm a bit behind my target, but we're getting there. And then it is, so what is also happening is the government now, the lights are turning on. They're realising that EV can't roll out fast enough because they need data. So they are creating their own a platform that creates a digitised, standardised, centralised data sets of maps, IoT and payments. So now they're building or want to build a version of that. And in the next 2 years, we'll get to a place where they have something that's there. So now, rather than it being me trying to educate the market for 10 years, which is exhausting as well as trying to do everything else.
Yeah.
Because it's all about education, right? Which is the hardest part, especially when you're a small company. So now the education part now, people are doing it for us. That's brilliant. So I was on a webinar, I literally hopped onto a webinar the other day, and the whole hour was about us and what we're doing, and I wasn't even part of it and didn't even know about it. I was like, hooray! I was like, thank God for that. And there's the big incumbents who are also advertising it because they've got to get on the bandwagon because they've got to be seen doing good now with new business models approaching. So it's all good. So there's a lot happening. There's the net zero 2030. All that sort of the net zero plans are going to fail miserably if they actually don't sort this out as well. So it is. We are literally.
And what you're doing would be a massitive part of helping them to contribute towards that, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we can help EVs. We can help today's combustion engines drive less. We tick every box.
So, like, if I ever got a parking ticket, I would literally phone you up and just say, "Look, Dad, is that right?" But joking aside, is there sort of a liability issue that if you've on the app, people have seen that it's fine to park there and then they get a ticket?
Yeah, I mean, this has always been a problem, and it's a huge risk that I was always willing to take. And back in the day when it was just me and my iPad, which was doing all the zones, and if I was out in the pub with my mates and I got an email, someone goes, "You bastard, I've got a ticket," I'll literally make it my own SLA that I'd get back to that person within 30 minutes. So regardless how drunk I was, I'll be in the pub just changing the zone to the time that they told me, email them, say, "I'm so sorry, if you can come on my journey with me and help me get it better." And then that built actually community, because what people just assume the data is available. Everyone thinks the data's there. But when you tell them that there is no data and we had to go and do it and we're doing all these parts, people are like, oh, right. And then they kind of back down. So we will get to a point, and I've always, my marketing hat on back in the day, if you do get a parking ticket without data, we'll pay the fine. Because we are...
Wow,
we can
that's
get,
a statement.
Because if you think about connected autonomous vehicles, they need to be compliant at curbside, right? When they're driving along the streets and then they pull over, who's responsible for that ticket? So you need, from a legal perspective, the compliance of that level 5 vehicle. So we are kind of selling level 6 curbside compliance to level 5 autonomous vehicles is the ultimate goal. And we are now at that place where we have, we've got 10% of local authorities now using the platform, generating legal grade traffic regulation orders, and also they're now using it to manage moving speed limits as well, traffic speed limits. So we created the digital rails for autonomous vehicles to be fully compliant, which is super exciting. So the areas where we have councils, local authorities as our customers, we are supplying legal grade data, so we can get to that point where you go, we'll pay the fine. Not there yet, because they're a bit slow sometimes, about a week out of date sometimes, so getting that speed up. But literally over the next 2 years, we'll get to a point where ubiquitous legal grade data across all the UK's network will be available. And at that point, I'll be then more promising with my, I'll pay your fine.
Is this a global game you're playing here? Do you think that this could go to every single authority around all the world, or customers around the world? Just how big is this could be?
Yeah, I mean, it is essentially the next generation navigation app, really, if you think about it. And pollution has no barriers as well, right? So it is an international problem. There's, 2 billion cars all lost every day in the world. You know, I think there's more cars in the US than people. Like, you know, you think about the problem of this and the dependency on petrol engines, and different worlds can't afford EV. You know, EV in the UK is extremely ahead, yet it is so far behind. You know, only 14% of local authorities have an EV strategy in the UK, and of that, there's only 5.5 man-hours dedicated per local authority. So you think about what the headlines are saying and the world is promising, and actually the reality of what's going on. So how do you decarbonise the planet with the existing vehicles? You use just good curbside data to optimise that journey.
You know what has been so amazing talking to you. There's two things that really come to my mind. For me, the tenacity, it goes beyond persistence, doesn't it? Really, it's just downright.
It's that genuine belief in what you're doing and that determination.
Yeah, it's like a steely, fiery belief that you can just really feel sat next to you. So to be here right now talking to us with obviously just so much excitement in terms of just now the potential for where this is going to go, you must be a guy that's really enjoying this, right?
Yeah, I mean, it is. I love what I'm doing. There's not a day where I don't get up and go, bring it on, because
really?
Every day, if I move forward a millimetre, that's enough. You know, I don't expect to leap forward in this, and it is. I'm quite impatient as a person, but I've never been more patient with this. It's tested my patience, but it is, as I said, the opportunity is incredible, and so yeah, it's super exciting. So I am very proud, but the journey in the roller coaster certainly isn't over. You know, you look at all the big layoffs in the US and the pandemic and all that, the recession and stuff like that. No one's bulletproof at all. But the trade winds certainly are behind us in terms of the opportunity to grasp.
Listen, it's been awesome talking to you. I love what you're doing. I love the fact that you're solving so many huge problems here, and especially with the fact that, you know, saving the planet here is a big part of what you're doing as well. But well done to you for doing everything that you've done, and just can't wait to see all the amazing success that you're going to be having at AppyWay in the months and years to come. So thanks, Dan.
Well, it's been a pleasure to speak to you both, so thank you very much.
Correct.